You are listening to Words with a Mad Coach. I am Mad Coach. I am Mad Coach. I am Mad Coach. Coach Sess. Coach Sess. I am Mad Coach. I am Mad Coach. I am Mad Coach. Coach Sess. Coach Sess. I am Mad Coach. I am Mad Coach. I am Mad Coach. Coach Sess. Coach Sess. I am Mad Coach. I am Mad Coach. I am Mad Coach. Coach Sess. Coach Sess. You are listening to Words with a Mad Coach.
Okay, so at what point do you break a man's spirit? Well, the first thing you have to realize is that you are dealing with a man and all the various roles that he's playing. Father, soldier, husband, brother, son, all the different roles that he's playing. And with those roles are the responsibilities that he's been told that apply to every role. He's provider, he's protector, he's mentor, he's guide, he's friend, and it's a lot of pressure for that person because his programming is telling him, I cannot fail. His programming is telling him that if I do fail, I'm less than a man. I'm not worthy of being a brother. I suck as a soldier, and unfortunately, from serving in the military, working with soldiers, training fighters, who happen to be in the military simultaneously, I have to take in consideration the mental. A lot of stuff that's going through their heads, and I have to kind of make sure that I'm not overloading their system to a degree that they feel overwhelmed. That they're dealing with pressure, and they're starting to overanalyze themselves. They're starting to put too many things on themselves, too many things on the plate to deal with at one time. I mentioned this recently on my podcast that we can deal with a lot of pressure. We just can't deal with everything at one time, all together. And that is the headache in itself. It's when everything culminates at the same time, especially when it's viewed as being negative. And even sometimes when there's overexcitement, then we get distracted. And then it feeds back into, okay, I'm partying too much. I'm having too much fun. Now I'm not taking care of my responsibilities. Then it goes back to that thing of, I'm not worthy. I suck. I'm a disappointment. And when I work with fighters that have all these different aspects of their lives, the one thing I remember is that they're probably telling themselves a story that they lock in here, and some of that story is the hero going through trials and tribulations. And what I can't do is add to that. If there's anything that I try to do is try to remind them of who they are, remind them of the training that they've gone through, the lessons they've learned from the experience, and hopefully they can find a way to dig deep and pull themselves out of that pit, out of that tunnel. And a lot of times, they end up there because somehow they put themselves there. The story they tell themselves, the fears that they let take hold and overwhelm them. And this is why you see so many men turn to alcohol. And a lot of it has to do with, their identity, who they are. And because, they're told that you're a soldier, you're a father, protector, mentor, right off the bat. And it's like the school system. School system says you're graduating to go to work, and you're not giving any training in the job field. You're not giving any training in the real world. And so all these guys have the responsibility of being protectors, and they have no idea what that really means. They're told, go be a good soldier, and you have no idea what a good soldier is, and you're not going to learn it in 2 months. And even when you go to AIT, depending on what you're doing, you're still not going to learn it in 6 months. So, you're dependent a lot on that person to really find the better version of themselves and pull that version out. That's what you're chasing. But yeah, it can be tiring day in and day out that you're constantly trying to put yourself at this high level and trying to maintain it. And you're not allowed to pull back. You're not allowed to drop down to 75%, 50%, because having to recuperate looks like weakness. So as coaches, we have to take that in consideration. And what we have to do is learn to use a progressive training method. Like there's a point where you're going to get some feedback. You're going to get some pushback from what you're doing. You got to learn to ride it out, because the person who's pushing back at you is not necessarily the fighter. And it's probably not one version of that human being that's in front of you. Especially if a lot of things are going wrong at different times. If stuff in fatherhood is agitating him, being a good soldier, if that's agitating him, being a good husband, really it's 3 people right there that's pushing back at you. You haven't even really dealt with the fighter yet. So when they do push back, just remember, it's not necessarily the fighter. The fighter might actually feel comfortable with his skills, but he might be a little distracted. And sometimes when we recognize that fighters aren't quite performing the way we want them to, we automatically go to the physical stuff. Oh, you need to work on, more footwork, more hands up, more takedowns. You need to escape the guard better, blah, blah, blah. We go there. And if that happens, what we should do is test it out in isolation. So when a fighter's having issues, like right here, where the fighter is having difficulty against the wall or whatever, put them on the wall in isolation and ask questions like, how do you get out of this position? What would you do here? What could you have done better? 9 times out of 10, they will be able to answer you, but they just weren't able to show it to you in execution. And that's cool, because at least if you're just not getting it in the execution, but they know the answer, that means there was something happening inside the head that was distracting them, taking them away from their performance. And the reason I bring this up is because, we don't want to overload them and stress them to the point where we're adding to that story that they are failures, or that the next thing they do in life, they're going to fail. We don't want to add to that story. We want to know that we push just enough where that push is relevant to the performance, and it's a daily activity. It's a daily activity of the give and the go. To push, pull back. Push, pull back. It's a daily grind. It's a daily grind. So we want to make sure that we understand that balance. We want to understand who we have in front of us. And one of the best ways to do it is to simply talk to the athlete. And this works too when you have women don't get told, that they have to be brutal. They have to be tough, and they're allowed to be a little bit gentler in life. But if you are training, say, a woman who is a serious athlete, or a protector, because she may be a single mom or whatever, yeah, these rules apply. So you want to find out who they are in here. What is that story they're telling themselves? Have a conversation. Create some dialogue back and forth. Get a great understanding of who you're dealing with. And when you get that understanding, that is going to help you figure out the right game plan for the particular athlete. And in some cases, that means, hey, you are physically ready to take on a fight, but mentally, we need to get some of these things that you're dealing with off the table. So we need a month. You know, maybe it's a car issue, but they don't have the money. And for some reason, that's triggering some emotions that makes them feel inadequate. We want to deal with that inadequacy, you know. And a lot of times, if you have a real tribe, a real community, they'll come together. You know, I've had fighters who could not eat. You know what? We come together, we get them some food. That's it, you know. But I do know this about, especially men, when they have difficulties, they won't talk about it. So it's more up to you as a coach to be a little bit more sensitive to the change-ups. You have to use that intuition that something's not quite right, and then try to, either you will talk to the person and get them to open up, or be sensitive to who in the gym is a bit more on a friendly basis with that athlete and get them to bring it out, you know. But whatever you do, don't put them inside of that cage or that ring without them being mentally strong